In this episode, you'll get a breakdown of the quote: "What you resist, persist. What you accept, transforms." Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions in consciousness expansion. 3 things you'll discover today: how resistance creates the very thing you're trying to avoid, why acceptance isn't giving up, it's getting leverage, and what to do when you're stuck fighting the same battles over and over. Let's begin with the quote: "What you resist, persist. What you accept, transforms." The persistence of resistance is like a vortex where if you have a whirlpool in the water, as the water gets momentum, the strength of the current or the riptide, it it doubles, it triples, it compounds. So we have to look at life with intelligence, not solely from the surface, where you would think, right, from a dumber, forgive me for my brashness, but from a dumber uh, perspective, that, oh, I'm going to resist something and, and then I'm done. I'm good. But it's like the acceptance is where the nuance comes in, because it allows you to understand why resistance doesn't create the outcome that the perspective without intelligence would otherwise think that it would create. So the acceptance is kind of a neutralization of energy. And the nuance within acceptance is that it isn't to obsess over the word. See, the trouble with the word of surrender or acceptance, a lot of lower perspective jumps to the conclusion of, oh, that means you're passive. Oh, that means you aren't disciplined. Oh, that means that you do not bring intensity into your life, which is all false. That is a misconception because of an overemphasis of a word. And this is where intelligence comes in. You don't really ever get into arguments. You don't argue with people, because when you have this intelligence, you see the conclusions that they have jumped to from lower perspectives. You have seen those lower perspectives in yourself, and then you start to catch on to the nature of the things that are working beneath the wood, or in other words, the subconscious or unconscious. When you start to see your relationship and the way that you create seriousness or excess potential around specific topics, goals, circumstances, relationships, anything that you can really think of consciously, there is the potential to be squandering or wasting energy through over obsession. Now, I myself am, I won't use the word passionate necessarily, but, and this is where it's super important to have conversations with honesty and correct pacing, so that you have the space in a conversation to actually get the point across of what you mean, why you use certain words, what those words are defined as. A lot of us, if we're in a conversation, whether that be noticing our own thinking, our own relationship to ourselves, or speaking outwardly with another, it's a pitfall to jump to conclusions. So in the semantics, the understanding of implications behind why we use the words we use. What is the tone, the cadence? What are those variables communicating through intuition? I guess what I'm speaking here, one of the biggest points that I would love to emphasize is I'm speaking to you from a level of where I'm at. Now, it takes commitment to strengthen your intuitive connection. And sometimes it may be hard to logically comprehend what I'm saying because a lot of the deeper aspects to life are purely intuitive, and they kind of almost jump over logic. Now, that doesn't mean that logic is to be condemned or anything of that nature, because real intelligence has both a scientific flavor and a unnameable godly flavor to it. And the moment that you kind of start to shun anything or think that your perspective is the perspective, you're done for. So, really, it is this awareness of the game that your resistance invokes, right? I like to see life in the lens sometimes of the lower perspectives, humans who do not have eyes to see or ears to hear that have yet not been activated, right? Because they have them. The intuitive connection in their heart, soul, and being is just yet to be activated. They may need some more time, right? Whether that be hundreds of years, thousands of years, or they're here on this life at this time and they're taking the journey as seriously as possible. And right, there we go. A few minutes ago, I used the word seriousness in the context of it can be a trap, right? To be over obsessed with something. And then I wanted to mention that I, myself, there's one obsession which precedes all other obsessions, and that is your relationship to God and Source. Now, I could never force another to see the truth, right? So that's where it's this balance of, okay, if I'm obsessed with the truth, if that is why I'm on this planet, well, then obviously I have a role to play in relationship to them. But the moment that I am resisting other people not being ready, then I actually send myself away from the truth. So, with awareness of your own resistance, you can have the right seriousness in the right circumstance. Where seriousness around that which you cannot control is useless, but seriousness in relationship to meaning is extraordinarily important. And hopefully you'll see that as you walk and you do your work and you discern and you drop judgment, but you still are, you tie the camel and you're psychologically, physically organized, locked in, if you will. Now, let's hop into point one, how resistance creates the very thing you're trying to avoid. Now, we have touched on this a little bit, but let's make it super simple. And it's almost as if I kind of do enjoy the metaphor of a magnetic pole because that is very practically what is happening with our energetic frequency and vibration that we radiate each moment. And the resistance, right? It's kind of like if you are to accept that you resist something, then you let go of it and you are back using the universal law of your energy goes where your attention flows. And if your attention is on resistance of that which you can't control, then your energy is being sucked into a vortex, strengthening that spiral. Now, on the other end, if we have awareness of the nature of the universal laws, then you can see that there's no point in resisting because you're actually giving up your power to change what you resist by resisting. You don't get too obsessed with the words, just keep listening. ultimately, when you notice your resistance, you accept it and you put faith in yourself, you execute, you act to change your state, you move in alignment and you choose the correct actions which make your state healthy, clear, powerful, able to discern. Then you find yourself accepting that which otherwise would drain you. And now that you're not squandering energy entertaining weakness, thought of control, then you'll get the Einstein quote, which is the solution to the problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness in which the problem was perceived. Now, that's verbatim, but nonetheless, the real essence here is each day in your life, there are going to be actions that you do. For example, I had some cake a couple days ago, and that cake really had a effect on my physiology. And I shall not label myself sick or anything of that nature, but I can see the clear connection between my decision to indulge in that cake and the vibrational reality which I've created through that indulgence. Now, you take the sins of life, right? And I do not judge, right? The word of a sin can often have the context of do not be a sinner and then entertain shame. That is not at all the way we're using the word right now. I'm just looking at if you are to indulge or to operate through an energy which is quite sinful, I invite you and all of us, to have accountability rather than resistance for what we have created, right? We all sow seeds, and the beautiful part, the magical part about life is that you could sow so many seeds, but as long as you show source, God, yourself, insert avatar label of any religion, you start to notice that skin colors are relevant, that opinions are relevant, that ideology is irrelevant. But there's one thing that matters. And the one thing that matters is how you show up every moment. And the cool part about that is you have full authority over your relationship to perception. And if you are to wear a black lens, you can clean that lens and make it clear once again at any point in your life. But the real kicker here is that it takes a change in how you live your life to have a change in how you see. And therefore, there may be certain actions which you know you need to let go of. And we can pray together, we can meditate together and say that I am not victim to any of these mechanical routines that I partake in. And I can free myself from these habits which are weak. And I have the power to change at any moment. And it is through the way that you think, the noticing of the way that you think, that alters the way that you speak. And as you have awareness of the connection between thought and action and perception, then you'll start to see the world changes. And then we insert the quote, right? The world is not as you are. The world is not as it is. The world is as you are. So if you are to place attention on all things going on in the world, whether it be in Asia or in America, Mr. Charlie Kirk, prayers in love, in faith, and strength for humanity. But I am not too. Now, we could very much have a conversation, practically, on what we can do as a whole to reduce the likelihood that murder happens, that things of that nature occur. And on the forefront, maybe this is not able to be heard by all, but those who have ears will understand that what we're speaking of here together is the actual fundamental foundation to humanity no longer committing murder. What we're speaking of here is the truth in relationship to you cannot change the world unless you change yourself first. You can go and be an activist. You can go and partake in these things, but the world must change first from the way that you see yourself, from the way that you speak, from the topics that you give your attention to. This is not a form of self-protection. This is a form of filling your cup first. And if you are to not fill your cup first, how could you ever share anything of beauty if you do not first let beauty be sown within your own heart? So see, the game here is the lower perception will kind of say, oh, but we need to change it now. We need to go, be active. And of course, you must be extremely active to have any form of spiritual clarity. But going out in public, participating in certain raves or groups, I trust that you have the intelligence to sit with yourself and to write to yourself and to begin to comprehend that everything comes down to your energy. And if you do not have peace within your heart, how could we ever have peace within this world? So it is extremely important to start with yourself first. Acceptance isn't giving up, it's getting leverage. You see, leverage is a energetic freedom which comes with the flavor of choice. And if you are to always be resisting, stuck in mechanical, petty, psychological, and physical movements, then you are like the hamster on the wheel, going round and round, but never going up nor down. I would much rather have you go the wrong direction, and like Mr. Alan Watts says, then you can turn around. It's valuable to get leverage on your own lifestyle, to notice that accepting what you can't control is the highest form of being. It has nothing to do with giving up or quitting or brushing those whom you would want to help to the side. Acceptance has an essence of strength, of power, of non-attachment. And it's only when you are not attached that you can share the light of the truth that will actually help to revolutionize each human heart. Too many humans think that you can just control. That's the problem with communism and socialism and things where you're controlling. The only way that humanity will change is one individual at a time, one heart at a time. And that means that we need to be here now in the moments that compound, because that's what's happening. We're in a continuously moving game of compounding. And when you start to get leverage on your own life, then you'll notice that the fog or the clouds that used to follow you around, that leverage has compounded, and now you have the sun following you around. And if you can walk, feel that light, feel the warmth, be that warmth, and let others know that this world isn't solely lost, that not all on this planet are lost, well, then you're sowing something of a magnificent essence, a magnificent taste and smell. And those blossoms, they are the reason why you are here. The meaning to life in the simplest term is just to let yourself learn to be. And you do that not through chasing truth, but through understanding how you inhibit your own light. Notice the role you play in falsehood. Now, what to do when you're stuck fighting the same battles over and over? starting to see that it's not so much a battle, but an adventure can be extremely invigorating. Because the adventure is like, all right, that dragon burnt me to a crisp. But I needed that to get stronger so then I can come back and face that dragon and one day actually be free of that dragon. Now, in the defeat, in being burnt to a crisp, you are ultimately being sent to the depths, but as above, as below. So if you can feel the depths and not get lost, and you can have the courage and strength to look the darkness in its eyes, you'll see that it smiles back at you. You'll see that the darkness is a friend in the perspective of us being created via one. Now, the darkness being a friend is a tougher perspective to adopt, but it is not the end perspective, but it is the truth that we can't get away. The devil is God's agent. The contrast of life is for the ultimate joy of the Creator. And I know it can feel hard to understand that there's been one intelligence which has perpetuated this entire universe. But when you really look at life from that standpoint, you'll start to make clear the infallible complexity riddled within the universe. And you'll see that these emotions, these moments, all the aspects of a human, that God gave us a wonderful adventure and opportunity to take part in that which is so harsh and so beautiful simultaneously. There isn't any one answer but changing who you are to see and operate from the intelligence of the one. There's nothing else to this life. When I say that, this is the structural perspective of being who you need to be. Now, very practically, there are going to be simple actions that are to be done. Like you are to take care of the vessel. You are to have accountability for the emotions of the human, which you label yourself as. You are to let go of the resistance that otherwise inhibits you from seeing truth. And you are to continuously walk with faith and strength and to never give up. Even in the hardest moments, to have the awareness to take on the bird's eye perspective. Whether it be that your dog dies, your mom dies, or your sister dies, or there's a very frustrating legislative occurrence in your legal life. The list could go on and on. There's millions and millions of specific content for each human. And it is your duty to decipher and start to tap into the intelligence which we all have within us. No one will ever do this work for you, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate just being able to share this. There are many things in my life where I notice my mind will go to a desire. And then I come here and I realize and I remember why I'm here and what the point of this whole thing is. Oof. Thank you so much for listening. Sincerely, I'll give you a very practical recap right here. How resistance creates the very thing you're trying to avoid. When you push against something, you're feeding it energy. The anxiety you're trying to get rid of, fighting it makes it stronger. So we have to notice and change rather than resist and dramatize. Now, the acceptance. Why acceptance? Is it giving up? It's getting leverage. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening. It means you stop wasting energy on what already is happening. And when you accept what's here, then you can work with it. You can get the fruit of the wind, the tide, the current, the energy, the weather. You know, you can take that, you can use it for you, for this world. What to do when you're stuck fighting the same battles over and over? You gotta notice the fight. Feel where you're resisting in your body. Yeah, exactly. Bring awareness to what the inner workings are communicating to you. Your body really will know things before your mind understands, whether it be a bad habit or whatever it may be. Sometimes the way out is through. You know, the resistance is the prison key. When you stop fighting, when you stop fueling resistance, you'll start changing. Again, share it with a friend. If you've benefited from this, it's almost your responsibility to share it with a friend, right? It's kind of like, you know, if this helped you fill your cup, help them fill their cup with it too. Thank you so much for listening. Genuinely, I appreciate you. And I'm working on a fitness offer. Pretty much, we're going to have something very practical and affordable for anyone and everyone. It's going to pretty much be like a little PDF, 20 to 25 pages, and it'll be a breakdown of everything I learned in my decade plus of going from skinny to strong. And I'll have another follow up offer with that. The PDF is extraordinarily powerful, but if you would like to see me do the workouts and break down everything that's in the PDF on video live while working out, that's going to be the next offer. I just want to make my coaching more available for anyone and everyone who may not have financial abundance just yet in their life. The third one will be basically I'm going to train AI with all knowledge, principles, and structures that I see to be important for your fitness. And of course, there will be psychological and spiritual integrated, but this is mainly for fitness. So basically, having me in your pocket, something like that, as a fitness coach, and much more affordable than the group coaching or the one on one coaching. And if you're interested in going to the next tiers, well, you could always shoot me an email. But I'll keep you updated on that. Soon I'll have the info in the description. And yeah, just shoot me an email if you're interested in taking on that one to one or the group coaching, and let's go. Have a wonderful day. Sincerely.